Welcome to Education Today, the guest teacher edition. I'm your host, Solanke. After 15 years as a secondary English teacher, I stepped away from the classroom and took a 1-year hiatus. Now I'm back in a completely new capacity. I'm a substitute teacher, and I get to experience teaching all grade levels and subjects from kindergarten to 12th grade. Join me as I document my journey, seeing education through a brand new lens and a different angle. So there was a school that I went to last week, and I did 7th grade math. And I said, at the end of that day, I'm never coming back here again. I remember being surprised by that day because I'd been told that was the premier middle school in that region, not in the county, but in that region. And people actually wanted their kids to go there rather than their neighborhood middle school. So I was shocked. And then the teacher had left a note about her advanced class. She had four regular, one advanced, and she said her advanced class was the best class. Well, they were the worst. They were the worst. And I said at the end of that day, after all of those classes, I'm not coming back here again. Those kids were wild. But then I came back this week, 7th grade. No, that was 7th grade math. This was 6th grade social studies, a tale of two cities. Last week was the worst of times. This week was the best of times. It was a tale of two middle school classes. And I'm thinking, so why does that class down the hall last week, 7th grade math, why was that awful in terms of their behavior? And why was this 6th grade social studies class really calm and nice? I mean, well, and again, this is not about bashing teachers, but I think there are different variables happening here. One of them, and I had this conversation with a woman at my gym, a former educator, used to work at that school. She said sometimes it just depends on what the teacher has set in place in terms of expectations, behaviors, expectations for when they're not here, structure. And I agree with her. I think that kids are going to act the fool when the teacher's not there. But I think there are some boundaries, and I think there's certain extents, like some kids won't cross if the teacher set certain things in place and they know that what she's going to do to them when she gets back if she hears a bad report. Another thing is, when I was in that math class, it might be math. It might be frustration with math in a regular class. There were kids that were like, she doesn't know how to teach. I hear that in math classes. She doesn't even know how to teach. Your teaching is better than she did. I'm probably teaching them wrong because I'm an English teacher. I never heard that with the social studies, but I think it might be the subject. I think it was 4 regular classes. And again, there was a push in. There was a push in ESE teacher in, I believe, 2 of those classes, at least 2 of them, which means that at least 2 of those classes, and they were averaging about 28 students. So the large classes, there was at least 2 classes where those classes were stacked, where there was enough special ed kids in the class that it warranted an ESE teacher to push in and spend time and then help the kids, which he did. He circulated. So there's another factor. You now have large class. I mean, the social studies classes were about the same size, but there was no push-in teacher. So I don't know if that's because people don't push into social studies because that's not like I know it's tested, but it's not like benchmark, the thing that gives the school school grade, the way that the pressure is on reading and math. So maybe they only push it into reading and math. That's possible. Maybe there still are special ed kids in those classes. I don't know. But I do know that in those math classes, there were enough special ed kids to warrant that teacher, a special ed teacher, to have to come in and circulate. So there's another factor there. Because let's be honest, when you have classes that have like 28 kids in there, and there's a lot of kids with special, with learning disabilities, that often comes with behavioral challenges. Sometimes those behavior challenges are actually points on the kid's IEP or 504 about specific behaviors. So that affects the class too. If you have a lot of kids in there who have who struggle academically or struggle with behavior, you've now stacked the deck against the teachers. So perhaps that's why those classes are wild when she's not here. Maybe they're even wild when she is here. And then maybe it's the subject, because of these there was only one advanced class, although they acted the full two. But the regular classes, it's like they had a test coming up, and the work that was left for them, they were not there yet. They were not there. They were struggling, and then some of it was learned helplessness. Some of it was they wanted me to do the work for them, and I would circulate and I would help them with some of them, but I definitely wasn't going to do it all for them. And some of them was just this: the teacher's not here, so I don't feel like doing this packet. Um, but some of them clearly said, I just don't get this. I don't even know why I'm in this class. And I just can't do this. I heard that a lot that day. That kids have just given up on math. This is too hard. I can't do this. I hate math. I'm terrible at math. We hear that too much, I think. I was one of those people too. Struggled a lot. So I think part of it is the subject, and a lot of kids, if they struggle in math, they kind of give up a little. They really need a teacher who's not. Well, let me not even go there, because that'll sound like I'm bashing the teacher. But they need. I guess they need. I don't know. Some of these kids need small groups, like how we do small groups for reading. Maybe they need to be pulled into small groups. I don't know. Maybe need more interactive. Less. I don't know how that teacher teaches, because I didn't witness her teaching. I only filled in. That's why when I was doing the VE pushing, it was such a different experience from substituting, because when I'm substituting, I'm the teacher. I'm in the classroom. But when you're doing like the co-teach thing, you get to see other people teaching. And as a teacher, I was teaching for like 15 years or whatever, I didn't really get to see other people teaching. So this is really interesting to be like an assistant or a co-teacher and witness and see other people's teaching styles. So the difference, the tale of two classes, right? It could be the subject. It could be the number. Well, the number of the kids was about the same. It could be the number of special ed kids in the class can change the dynamics. I see that, and I see teachers getting labeled as good teachers when I used to teach. But when you look at them, it's like, but you have all AP classes, and they're very well behaved, and they want to do well, and they work really hard, and they have parents supporting them at home, and they have extra tutoring. But you're the good teacher, and then the teacher who gets the kids who are struggling, yeah, it's not really fair. And let's not even talk about the fact that the teacher that works hard and does well will often get the kids who are struggling. Well, you're a good teacher for those kids, so education is very interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think the subject matter is a huge thing. Like I said, a lot of kids have just decided that math is not for them, and math is too hard. And social studies, I think, is more accessible. And they were American history. They were doing American history, and they were close to like Boston Tea Party. And I know not everyone likes social studies, but I think it's more accessible than math to a lot of students, unless if you have a propensity for math. And I will say I had a similar experience. I went into the same elementary school for 2 days as a music teacher, so I got to experience a lot of different classes. And I actually went to the classes. And one day I was in a kindergarten class, and I was like, "Wow, this is kindergarten. Do these kids not go to preschool?" I don't think these kids went to preschool. They don't know how to sit still and be quiet. Wow. And there was one boy in that class who just disrupted. He just turned everything upside down with his behavior. What the worst thing was, the other kids tuned him out because they were so used to what he was doing. And what he was doing was so disruptive, and it was, oh boy, I was just like, I left that class and I was like, God bless his teacher and the teacher's aide. God bless them, because that is a lot. And then the next day I went to another kindergarten class, and it was like night and day. These kids were sitting up. These kids were listening. These kids were raising their hands to ask questions. I mean, there's always a few. There was a few who were just like rolling around on the rug, and I tell them, come and sit back down on the rug. But nothing like the one yesterday where that boy was going wild and another boy was doing his own thing and just, because in that class yesterday, there's actually two of them. One of them was trying to escape and run away. The aide had to bring him back, and the other one was doing his own thing and going everywhere in the classroom and not listening. But then today, it was night and day. So then do you say, well, maybe the second teacher has established rules and procedures, and that's why her class is so tame and respectful and on task? Or maybe it's just who's in the class. I don't know. Because That class yesterday had kids in there who were off the chains at age 5 and 6. And I was like, wow, wow. The one who's trying to run away and was having a screaming fit when he wasn't getting his own way and was refusing to do anything we were doing. I was like, if that kid doesn't have an IEP already, there needs to be some, because I'm seeing some serious issues there. There's something going on there. There's definitely something going on. I don't know, because sometimes all it takes is one kid like that, and that class had 2 kids like that, and they just start to set off the other kids. So and it's like you don't know the look of the draw each year as a kindergarten teacher or first grade teacher who you're gonna get. You don't know. So if you get a year, I mean, as a teacher, I've had years where I've had wonderful classes. Those were the years I was a wonderful teacher, and I've had classes where I've had years where my classes were off the chains, and those are the years when I was a struggling teacher, I guess. Oh, wow, exhausting years. So yeah, is it this? Do we automatically blame the teacher? But who's in the class, right? Who's in the class? Who was placed in the class? And maybe there are some kids in the class who don't need to be in the same class. And having that little change could change everything. So as a substitute teacher, guest teacher, I am learning to slow down and smell the coffee and to not rush through curriculum, understanding that sometimes teachers leave a lot of work, not because they need you to get through all that work, but because they need to keep the kids busy and on task so they don't act a fool. And I used to do the same thing, actually. If I had a class that was challenging, I would leave a lot of work. Sometimes that backfires because I've noticed sometimes, especially in those math classes, if the teacher leaves work that is too hard, the kids just tune out. They just give up. So and I think I've made that mistake before as a teacher where I was like, this class is off the chains. I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to get any time to get the substitute hell. I'm going to leave something really challenging. They'll probably just tune me out. Say, I can't do this, and then just cut up. So there has to be a balance there between keeping them busy and giving them something accessible. So, and also as a teacher, I did develop relationships with students. I definitely did. And we had a lot of fun in the classroom. But I was also very curriculum focused, like, we've got to get through this. We've got to get through this. I need to do this. I need to do this. And obviously, so there were times when you didn't get through everything and you had to say, well, we'll finish this next week. We'll do this tomorrow. I have to cut this out. But I remember just being very like, I got to get through this. I got to get through this. And I'm learning as a substitute to just slow down. If I don't get through everything the teacher leaves, it is okay. If a kid is trying to talk to me about his new dog and everyone else is on task, I should probably listen. That's what I'm learning. And so today, I was a music teacher and she left me this amazing book about this boy who's deaf, he's in a class with all deaf students, and they go to a concert and they're able to hear the music by feeling it. They can feel it, the vibrations of the music, and then the teacher gives them a balloon, and they put the balloon in their lap, and they can feel the vibrations. And they sign to each other, and every page of the book has like the boy signing certain things, and at the back is like a sign alphabet. So when I was reading this book to one class, there was a boy who was signing throughout the whole book. He was looking at the boy signing in the book, and he was mimicking the signs. And he decided he wasn't going to talk at all that class. He even drew a picture for me that I could tell by the picture. The picture said no talking, like he's not going to talk. And he signed the whole class. At first, I thought he was actually signing because he looked really convincing. He was learning. He was enthralled by the signing in that book. And so at the end of the book, when we finished the story, I gave the kids the activities about stringed instruments, and they were coloring. And this boy looked at the activities that I gave him, and he looked at the book. He wanted the book. So I gave him the book. And I said, it's okay, you don't have to do the activity. I know you want to just learn the signing. So the rest of the class, he was learning signing. And at one point, he turned to me, tapped me, and he made a sign. I said, what does that mean? And he showed me the book, and he said, teacher. He was calling me teacher in sign language. That boy was so into the signing, and that was more important than the activity. So I told him, don't do the activity. Let's just do the signing. And he spent the whole period going through the book, learning different signs, showing them to me, and signing to his classmates. And I thought that was so cool. When his teacher came back, I told her he was signing. He's really into it. Hopefully she'll maybe she'll be able to do a lesson on it. And I left a note for the music teacher that this particular kid was so enthralled with this book that he was doing American Sign Language the whole class period and learning it, and learning to say different things like thank you, and like when I was leaving, he was like waved goodbye and said thank you in sign language. It was so cool. So cool. It was important for me to realize at that point that getting him on task to do the activity was not important. He wanted to learn signing. Who knows what he'll go on to do and to be? And in Florida, we do have that as a class online. I think you'd have to be middle school to do it. He was in second grade. He's only in second grade, and it was really cool what he was doing. I know he went home that evening and was signing to his family. Maybe they, I don't know, maybe someone in his family signs. I don't know. You never know. But maybe they will see that there's something there and maybe help him to start learning. Maybe he wants to take a class in American Sign Language. There was another boy in the class who got out of his seat and came to me and started saying, do you know how black hole forms? My first instinct is, go back to your seat and do your assignment. But I was like, I don't know, actually. And he started telling me, and he's talking about nebula and all this. He's using vocabulary that is way more than second grade. And I'm just looking at him, and I'm like, how do you know that? And I could tell the other kids didn't know that. And that wasn't something in their curriculum yet. It was a little advanced. Then he said, do you know how a white hole forms? And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. At least he's using all this advanced vocabulary to talk to me about black holes and white holes. Then he starts talking about 3D printers and how he's going to get a 3D printer and how he's going to create some kind of rocket to go up into space. And he started, and I was like, I said, you're going to be a scientist. So he was off task. He wasn't doing the assignment. He was standing by me, and he was so excited, and he was telling me, I was like, how do you know this stuff? Like, are your parents teaching you? Is there something that you watch at home? He didn't really tell me, but he's definitely into it. And I was like, you're going to be a scientist. You probably work for NASA. And his face lit up at that. He loved that. And it reminded me of, and I really hope he is being encouraged in that by teachers or parents. And it reminded me of one of my children who, when he was young, started showing a propensity for science at a very young age. And I remember telling his science teacher in elementary school, there's something here. If you leave this child in a room with a machine, you'll come back and that machine will be taken apart because he wants to know how it works. And if you leave him in a room with separate parts, when you come back, the parts will be assembled into something. I said, the teacher just blew me off. He was like, oh, that's nice. He just blew me off. And and none of his teachers caught it. None of his teachers caught it. I remember even sending a video to one of his science teachers of him in the backyard shooting off rockets. No, it's just like, oh, that's nice. Like, nobody saw it. We saw it. His parents saw it. Nobody saw it. And the reason they didn't see it is because he struggled with reading. Because he struggled with reading, he didn't get any of those enhanced gifted classes for people who were gifted and all these STEM things. Nope. You struggle with reading, you need extra reading. I had to fight for him in middle school to be put in like higher level science classes because he needs to be in reading. You got to help you with reading. Nobody caught it. Nobody saw it until he got to like high school, and then he started to flourish. And in talking to friends who in the UK, which is where I'm from, but I raised my kids here, I'll hear them say something like, "Oh, yeah, my kid is labeled as gifted in the area of fill in the blank, gifted in the area of music, gifted in the area of science, gifted in the area of math, gifted in the area of language." But over here in Florida, it's all or nothing. Is gifted or not? So a kid like him, my child, who was obviously gifted in science, will not be labeled as gifted because he has to be gifted all around. His IQ has to be a certain whatever. But I do, if that's how it is in the UK, and I've heard my friends say that, I love that system where you can be labeled as gifted in, and he would have been labeled as gifted in the area of science, and he would have had enrichment in that and been encouraged in that. Luckily, it turned out okay because he's engineering major in college. It all came together. But I remember having to fight for him to be in higher level science classes because they just looked at the reading score and wanted to put him in the lower level. And you can't do that to kids. You cannot do that. Kids and adults, but kids, they have so many different talents. So many different talents. There was a second grader who was enthralled with that sign language. you don't know what that talent is going to lead to. It could be language. We don't know what it's going to lead to. That boy who was telling me about nebulas and black holes and white holes in second grade and was so excited about it, and you had vocabulary that I was like, what is that? You don't know what he's going to become, but there's something there that needs to be nurtured. And I really hope it's being nurtured by his teachers, by his parents. And there was another boy in third grade that same day who was acting the fool in class. But I was just like, I don't think this boy is a class clown. I think he's acting the fool because his teacher's not here. It's the end of the day and it's a Friday. And he doesn't want to color the sheet because I gave him, he had 3 options of what to do. And the one he did was a math related one. And when it came to color, he said, I don't want to color this. And there's a part of me that was like, oh, he's just being defiant. But there's a part of me that was also like, I think he's a math person. So, because that's the one he did first. Most kids didn't do that one first. So they did the coloring first. So I started talking to him. And then I saw his last name and I asked him a question. And then I determined, this kid might know Arabic. That might be his background. So I started speaking to him in Arabic. And he'd be like, what? And I'd say it again. And then he'd respond. And I'd say something in Arabic. My Arabic is very rusty because it's been 2 years since I taught ESOL. English is a second language. But I'd say something in Arabic. He'd say, what? I said it again. He'd correct me. And then he'd respond. And then this boy in third grade said to me, there's different types of Arabic. He's in third grade. He said, there's different types of Arabic. There's the Arabic you're speaking to me is different from the Arabic from Morocco, which is where he said he's from. He said I'm from Morocco. And he said, our Arabic is called, and he told me something. I said, oh, it's a different dialect. He said, yes, it's a different dialect. So then he was like, I said something else. And he said, what? And he corrected me and said, but the fact that he could explain that to me in third grade, that you're speaking a different dialect of Arabic, I was so impressed by that because my first instinct for that kid was, this is the trouble boy in the class. I want to send him to the office because he was being so silly. But I just knew there was something else there and just speaking to him. So slowing down and forgetting about the curriculum, he wasn't going to color that sheet, and that's fine. So we had a conversation about Morocco. He was talking about how football is huge there. He was telling me about the different places in Morocco. He's only in third grade. He's been to Morocco. He's telling me, my mom is from this part of Morocco. My dad is from this part of Morocco. And he's telling me about the different dialects. There's something in every kid. And, you know, this kid, I think, he's a math science person. That's the impression that I got. But I was just so impressed with how he was able to explain to me the different dialects in Arabic. And I was like, and I was about to send him out the classroom. But he's still silly, being silly in between. But I mean, it was Friday and he was done. And yeah, I think the lesson there for me is relationships first, curriculum second, especially if you're a substitute teacher. Because as a substitute teacher, you don't have a relationship with these kids that the teachers do. So you gotta form that, even though you're only with them for 45 minutes or half a day. Or if it's K through 1, a full day. The little ones want to tell you about their dogs and their aunt and the baby shower they're going to, and all. They go to Chuck E. Cheese for their birthday. Relationships first, curriculum second. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of Education Today. We'll be back next time with more current topics on all things education. In the meantime, you can email any questions or comments you have about the show to edtodaypodcast@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, please hit the subscribe button and consider leaving a review on whichever platform you are listening. We are listener supported, so if you are able to give a one-time or monthly donation, check out the show notes for ways in which you can give. Check out my blog for more about my experiences in education at medium.com/@SOKO. That's medium.com/@SOHKOR. You can also find me on Instagram at SOKO_rights. That's at SOHKOR_rights. See you next time, and thank you again for listening.